Welcome to Title Talk, a podcast for real estate investors where we cover tips, tricks, and trends in the industry.
This podcast is all about providing valuable insights to help you maximize your investment opportunities.
Whether you're a seasoned pro or just getting started, Title Talk is the place to stay in the know and get inspired.
So grab your headphones, tune in, and let's talk title.
What's cracking?
Ooh, what's crack-a-lackin'?
Tons. Good to see you, Dina, as always.
It's good to see you too. I love Title Talk Thursdays.
Isn't it always?
Oh, and we have a special guest.
Yep.
We have a special guest.
He's inserting himself into the experience today. This is Henry, by the way, if you guys are unfamiliar with my 1-year-old puppy.
Such a cute little baby.
He's the best, but he also needs to sit down now, Henry.
Who's got puppies in the audience? We want to know who's here with us live.
Yes, but we have actually an incredible guest to bring up today. And
this is the first.
It's a first, yeah.
Title Talk first.
We will get to that in a minute. But what's been new in your world? What are you seeing happening in the space of title?
You know, there's a whole lot of things happening right now. I'd say I'm hearing a whole lot about this new.
Okay.
Everybody's talking about the NAR thing, and I'll say that we have a lot of situations that are happening with regards to disclosure these days.
Oh.
So I'd love to hear from your perspective, like what are the top 5 things every investor needs to disclose?
Well, you know, I have a statement that I put on every one of my contracts that I think
Covers it all?
To a degree. Okay, so I think as an investor, it's important that you disclose your intentions, right? And so my statement that I put on all of our contracts is buyer is in the business of buying and selling real estate for a profit. And then I will list out what my potential exit strategies might be, right? So I will typically say buyer may elect to fix and flip, buy to hold, or wholesale the contract at buyer's sole discretion. And then if anybody in the transaction is licensed, I'll make a disclosure on licensing. And so outside of that, I disclose my intentions. I think your intentions are the most important thing, right?
For the consumer, for sure.
Right. And so that for me, I think is a critical piece of information that gets disclosed. And funny enough, our guest today is an attorney.
Yes.
And so we're going to be able to really dive into the conversation of disclosure and, some of the things that she sees in the world of real estate law and how it's been affecting the business that she's in.
Yeah. And I'm really excited because when I read her bio, the thing that popped out to me first was that she likes to be proactive to prevent future litigation. And I think it's going to be a really powerful conversation with Celena R. Nash. She is the managing partner of the law offices of Celena R. Nash, PA, and she is out of Florida.
Amazing. Well, since we've already said her name, why don't we bring her up? Celena.
Hi.
Nice to meet you, Celena.
Nice to meet you, and thank you for having me.
Of course. So, Celena, it's incredible to talk to you right now, and I think it's super timely because there's so much going on in the world of real estate, especially legally. Right now, we've got the NAR decision or the changes, the settlement, yes, that is going to really start taking into effect for real estate agents come July 1st.
August 17th. Date's been changed.
Oh, they've changed the date.
Changed the date.
Okay, so August 17th. They needed more time. So, there's and then now I've been reading on comments that people are writing, oh, now the Department of Justice is going to get involved and there's going to be, hell to pay, and real estate agents are going to start getting sued, and brokerages are going to get sued, which they already have been. I mean, Keller Williams paid out a massive settlement. So what are your thoughts about that, Celena? How do you see the world of real estate law being affected by what we've seen come down in the last year?
I think it's only the beginning. I think that things are going to heat up even more than what we see now. And I think it's going to get a lot more complicated for agents, personally, and for attorney title companies. I think it's going to get a lot more complicated for everyone. I think in the past, a lot of us, and I would include myself since I've been in the industry for a while, um, got lax with things being great, things being comfortable, things being smooth, things being pretty accessible. Um,
Easy button. Easy
yes,
button.
yes, easy. That's a good
Yeah,
word.
easy button.
Without any real controls. So I think things are just getting started. And you said something while I was waiting, which is disclosures. Um, I cannot emphasize enough the necessity of disclosures, and especially if you're a seller, making sure everything is out there. Let them make a decision. Sometimes a deal fall through just for the simple fact things are disclosed, but it's better to put it out there up front than to not disclose it and then wait to the end and then things blow up. Um, that's my position. Say as much as you possibly can up front if you are a seller, but if you're a buyer, pay attention. People don't pay attention. They're afraid to lose a deal. They're afraid they're going to lose a few hundred or sometimes a couple $1,000s. Pay attention to the red flags. They mean something. They're
Well,
red.
they're also emotional, right? Like they're so excited because they've mentally moved into the home.
Yeah.
They don't always read out all the details. Like there might be fissures here, or there there might be, you know, airplanes across the street.
Right. I mean, I 100% agree, Selena, and with what you're saying, Dina, with respect to the disclosure side of it. On the wholesale side, it got interesting for me in a circumstance that I was involved in like 5 years ago. And so when we're wholesaling properties, we're typically buying and selling homes that are in severe disrepair, right? And so it's impossible to know fully the extent of what somebody is going to need to repair in a house when it's in that condition. You essentially say it's a mess.
It's a hoarder house.
Yeah,
We have no idea.
we have no idea.
Too many cats, there's too much trash.
Right. And there's going to be significant repairs that are going to be needed here. So do all of your due diligence, and the onus is on you. We're disclosing that it's a mess. Okay. So you're going to need to deal with this. But you're buying it as is, you're buying it in its current condition, and you are accepting the contract that says that you'll have done your due diligence prior to entering into this contract and submitting your earnest money. And so I do a deal where that's the case. Severely disrepaired fourplex in North Phoenix. And I don't know, maybe 3 months after the transaction closed, I get served with legal papers. And I'm getting sued from the buyer of that property, saying that, I didn't disclose that there was this electrical issue, that, a tenant was stealing power from another building near our building, and they had, constructed an underground mechanism to steal power. And so, of course, I mean, I'm not an electrician, and I had no idea that that was happening. But I was at the property inspection. We saw everything together. They had an electrician there. They had somebody there that could have identified this, and they would have known that prior to purchasing the property. But again, anytime you get sued, you have an option, right? Are you going to take this all the way and bleed yourself of money, or are you just going to settle? And of course, I'm a person who loves speed and convenience, and so I decided to just write the check and get it off of the books, right? And so I settled. But it sets a terrible precedence. So I had to catch myself. It sets a terrible precedence because at the end of the day, if you are fully aware that the property has tremendous issues with it, when does the disclosure versus due diligence become tipped in one of the sides?
So it's funny you would ask this question. I wasn't expecting you to ask this, but let me tell you something I do. Because I work with a lot of developers and I work with a lot of investors. So what I created over the years is two things: an affidavit of as is affidavit is what I call it. As is affidavit. So when I say it's in your face, It is in your face. And not only do I make sure that they attach it, it is given to the person at the time of contract. So this is not after I have another affidavit they sign at closing, but this affidavit is signed at the time of the contract, is included as a addendum to the contract. As
Right.
soon as you
We
sign,
had an as is addendum signed as
no,
well.
mine is intense. Like, it's
Ah,
so harmless in language in there, identification language in there. It is disclosure that if you're thinking the worst of this property, it is there on this property. If you're thinking environmental issues, it's on the property. If you're thinking the electrical issue, it's on this property. And addition, I also have them to put language if they've never lived in the house. We have never lived in the house. We have no idea how it is in the day, how it is at night. We have only been on the property a few times for several inspections or what type of inspections, but the document is so intense. And I tell you why I drafted it this way. After this lawsuit that my client got in for not disclosing, the floors were uneven, so it was foundational issues, and for them it was an investment property. And I won't tell you the name, but I will tell you that my client knew, they had an idea something was wrong. They didn't disclose that. So even when they gave what we have in Florida, you have to provide, sellers should provide a document of just seller's disclosures, what we call it. They should provide it. Some don't sign it because they never live in the property, so they refuse to sign it. But my client didn't give anything, no disclosures as to the condition of the property. So he was sued. And quite frankly, we didn't settle because his cost analysis was different than yours. And he wanted to go all the way. We didn't settle until I think 2 days before trial. And at that point, the cost was high, but the other side was also putting out money. So they were willing to settle it as well. So my client didn't spend as much as they wanted from the initial demand, but at the same time, they lost money because they were tied in a lawsuit. So their investment was a part of this lawsuit that could have been put back into the market and purchase something else to grow their money. So anytime you're being sued, you have to do a cost analysis. Is it worth it? And my advice most of the time is not worth it. Putting money to legal fees where you could be spending this money to reinvest it into the market. It's a risk. It's a risk anytime that you make an investment. You always making a risk.
how do you propose that people can protect themselves from litigation of that nature? Because, let's just say that your client had signed a disclosure and disclosed it. They could still get sued, right? And I think the thing at the end of the day, even with the as is addendum that you write that's ironclad and very much in your face, it doesn't stop somebody from filing a lawsuit and forcing arbitration. And if you've ever been in an arbitration hearing, I'm sure you have, but for those who are listening to us today, they may not have. I sat down with what they do is they bring in a judge who's off, not working that day. So basically, it's like overtime for judges. And so
sometimes it's not even a judge. Sometimes it's just another attorney. So yes.
In this case, it was a judge, and the judge said, "Look, I'm reading your contract, and you're right. Your contract says that the buyer is to do all their due diligence, is to, that they know that they're buying a house that's in complete or building in complete disrepair. You will win a lawsuit." He said, you will win a lawsuit. It's going to cost you $50,000 to $70,000 to win it.
Yeah.
And here's what's going to happen. They are not going to pay your legal fees because they're not going to have the money to pay your legal fees. And so you're going to be out that $50,000 to $70,000. You're not going to be able to recover that. You're going to have you're going to have the principal win. You're going to win in principle.
Yeah,
but you're going to lose financially. And the judge was super honest with me. He's like, you have everything here buttoned up, but my suggestion is I'm going to go back into that room and I'm going to tell them that you are going to win the lawsuit. That I believe that looking at these documents, that this young man did everything that he was supposed to do, and that I feel that he's going to win the lawsuit. And I also feel that he's in a better financial situation than you, and that he's willing to offer you a certain amount of money today for this to end now. And that's it. You're going to get this one opportunity to take this sum that he's going to give you, and it's a gift. and make
Let's
a deal.
Make a deal. Yeah.
And so I did. I wrote a $15,000 check that day. The judge said you got off light because you would have spent 50 to 70,000. I'm sorry that you got sued. You shouldn't have been sued, but you did. So what do you think? Like what can people do to protect themselves from frivolous lawsuits like this, or from litigious people that are doing this as a career? Because there are people out there who sue people as a career choice.
Yes, absolutely. You would never be completely protected. As long as we have laws, as long as we have attorneys who are willing to take that risk, who are willing to receive some money to go to court, you would never be completely protected. I wish I can tell you would, but you can't. No document I or any other attorney can write that's going to prevent you from being sued. You have people who sue. Some of the things that we take, some approaches we take when you are sued, is to be that aggressive. We are very, very aggressive when we need to be aggressive. But what the judge told you is something that I have conversation with many people, and some take my advice, some don't. Some fight on principle and principle alone. I have made a lot of money off of principle. Principle is my friend. But one of the things
I love your honesty, Celena.
Yeah. But one of the things that I always do is be completely honest. I try to be so practical, and what he told you is very practical, because you could have had someone else to tell you something different, which is let's fight. You can win this, and you possibly could.
My lawyer was telling me to fight it.
Yeah,
so I had my attorney over here, and she's like, Jamil, I'm telling you, you got this. Let me be the bulldog I am. You hired me for a reason. You called me your little bulldog. Let me get out there and start biting people. I can do this. And she saw an opportunity for a payday for sure, right? She was seeing the $50,000 to $70,000 in legal fees that she could have gotten.
But at the same time, she could have been thinking, in Florida, there is a approach that we sometimes take, which is a 57105. When we send out this notice, it's a process. It's not like a straightforward, it's going to happen automatically. If we're sued, that's when we take this position, if we're going to take it, especially if you have something that is clear as day, that you have no legal basis for pursuing it. We send out this notice. It's called a safe harbor notice first. Then once you send the notice, you give them opportunity to dismiss the action. Now, they fail to do so and you prevail, guess who's on the hook? Not just that defendant or that plaintiff, the attorney is now on the hook. So that prevents people from filing frivolous lawsuit. I have sent those letters out and lawsuit goes away. So there is an approach to it sometimes, but if it's clear as day as you're stating, and let me be honest, everybody think their case is the best. Everyone think their case is going to win, and this is it, Celena. I got a golden ticket, and it's not. But if you do have something like you're describing, that's the best approach. Sometimes you have to be a little aggressive, because what would happen is they'll come back after you again. Sometimes when you're deciding to file a lawsuit, you go to the docket and you look and see how many times has this person been sued, and then you see how many times have they settled, so you can set yourself up as a target if you don't fight back sometimes. And when they see you as being aggressive, someone who's very, very about business, then sometimes they tend to back off. So it is a different approach, but key here, when you're dealing with investor cost analysis, you always have to do that, and don't always follow your heart, because your heart tell you that principle is your friend. Principle is not your friend on the other end. Principle is my friend, but not your friend.
Right. It's a friend of the person receiving the fees. Well, actually, I did get a piece of really great legal advice, and it happened to be from the judge, and he said it to me off the record then. And he was like, I really like you, and I want to give you some advice.
You're a likable guy.
Thank you. And I'm like, okay, well, what's the advice? He says, well, it was really easy for them to see your assets. And here's what happened. Okay, this attorney is on a contingency, meaning that they're not paying by the hour for this attorney. This attorney took this case on, not because of the merits of the case, but by the merits of your assets. So they did a search for your assets, and they found out the assets that you have, and that attorney realized that you had more to lose by being sued than anything else. And so the best way for you to protect yourself from a frivolous lawsuit in the future is to have all of your assets in a trust that are not traceable, that is completely anonymous, to be as anonymous and as off the record as possible with your assets, so that nobody can see what you've got. Because when the attorney is then presented with this
Yeah.
as a complaint, and they're like, well, let me take a look at what this guy's got, and then they do an asset search for that LLC or for you, and they see nothing, they will say to that person, I won't take this on contingency, it's $500 an hour. And that person now, who's now having to write a check for $500 an hour, will think
A little
before they move forward with filing the lawsuit, because now it's $500 a freaking hour.
That is amazing that the judge even shared that with
It
you.
was the best legal advice that I had ever gotten. And this is from somebody who was in the know, right? This is from somebody who's in the know, who was
Yeah.
like, look, I'm going to give you a golden nugget here right now that nobody talks about. But this is what happens in the back offices of the attorneys that are deciding on how they take these cases. And they're not looking at the case on its merits. They're looking at you, at your assets.
Yes.
So be smarter next time and move your stuff. And if you move your stuff and you do this correctly, then in the future, when a lawyer has that opportunity, they're going to pass on the case, or they're going to charge by the hour, and then after that, you're probably going to be okay.
That's probably that is the best advice. And this is one of the things when I'm approached by new investors, one of the biggest things you have to do is start off in the right direction. Do not start to try to do it on your own. Set it up properly from the beginning. If not, you can end in a lot of trouble. And having it structured properly, like, I can't emphasize that enough. Here in many states, people tend to file those things on their own, and they think that they're protected, or they don't put them in an LLC or any other type of entity, and they put them in an individual name. And that's a problem. And you have those who continue to build that way, in their name, all their assets in their name. And from tax liability to premise liability to all types of liability, you are exposing yourself from the start. And when you start making those transfers to make the changes that the judges told you, guess what? They're expensive changes. They're expensive because now you have to do transfers, which are transfer taxes, which is also going to be tax implications, because now that those step up basically, because they're not going to look at it as you're just, it's just transferred to his company.
No, you sold it.
You sold the company to
There's capital gains
to your company. Yes.
Yeah.
So it's one of those things that a conversation I have way too often with experienced investors who are still holding properties in their individual capacity. I can't believe you don't even know how much more taxes you're paying because you have it in your individual name. So yeah, start from the beginning in the right direction. Otherwise, you're going to pay for it. As you see, putting a ticket on your back by not having it protected.
Did you take the advice?
Absolutely.
The judge? Yeah.
Absolutely. I took the advice. And in fact, we actually ended the relationship didn't end there with me and this individual. We exchanged information and we stayed in touch.
The judge or the buyer?
The judge.
Okay.
Yep. And he gave me another piece of advice later on, which I'm just gonna say here and I don't know how good or bad this is. Maybe I shouldn't.
You usually don't have a filter.
Okay, so if you are in a pending situation, right?
Pending what?
Whatever. Like, just say you're in a pending situation, like you're a divorce. One of the tactics that he has seen be used is for litigants to find out all of the top attorneys that are in that market and to book consultations with each of them.
I knew you could
pay them the retainer and have them conflicted out of being able to represent the opposing party. And not like for real. And like that is, he's like, you don't understand how freaking powerful that strategy is, because if you're in this situation and this person has no one to talk to, and then he said, you can use this for like personal situations. You can use this for litigation.
So pay the $500.
If there's big litigators in your town, if there's huge litigators in your town, book a consultation with them. Pay the $300 or $400 or $500. Conflict out every ambulance chasing major litigator in your market so that you can sleep at night knowing that these people can never come after you for only a few $1,000s. For a few $1,000s spent and maybe 5 or 10 hours of consultative talk, this attorney can never sue you, can never be involved in an action against you. What do you think of that, Celena? Was that the second piece of best advice that you've ever heard?
Okay, so that is used all the time in family law, all the time, which is why you would find that most family law attorneys do not give free consultations because of what you are describing. They're going to be.
No, that's why you pay for it.
Yes. So you can conflict the person out of the potential case. Now, will that work in a bigger city? Likely not, because there are so many options. You would run out of money trying to pay every top attorney in a major city. As opposed to if it's a small town, absolutely, that's a great strategy.
Yeah, but I think the way to go about it is and just Google whatever, litigation attorneys in Arizona. Get the first 2 pages on Google, book a consult with all the first 2 pages on Google, because by the 3rd page, whoever's trying to sue you gives up.
Well, I'm pretty sure like here in Arizona, like if you're trying to sue like a builder or a developer, you're never going to find one because they're all
conflicted out. Yeah, they're conflicted out,
all
right?
the good ones here.
100%. So they understood what the judge told me instinctively. There, he was like, dude, listen. I'm telling you this because I really like you and I want to see you win out there. I want to see you continue to build. And the bigger you get, the bigger the target on your back is going to be. So it's really important that you form these relationships, that you conflict these attorneys out of ever being able to come after you because they will.
Yeah.
They will. And so they're looking at you. Sometimes attorneys are looking at you as a target and then they find who they're going to use to come after you. Yeah. It can get that diabolical sometimes, right?
Yeah, especially in housing disputes or discrimination. So they will put testers out there for that very reason. And being a landlord, have an advertisement management company, they look for people to sue. They'll have a tester that goes out and find people and they will sue you for that reason and go after every listing you have put out there. If you're a realtor, you're a property manager, you're a landlord, they will target you for that reason.
So Celena, I'm so curious because you just sparked something he's going to like this. So right now our market is very focused on affordable housing pad splits, right? So taking a house that's a 3-2 and converting it to like a 6-6, for example. Jamil's got 2 of them going on right now. Like, is there anything that you could recommend that's like proactive to prevent them from like being sued down the line for putting all these people under one roof that don't know each other and essentially are strangers?
So the one thing that I always advise, so I don't know if you guys know my background, but I do represent property owners, and I call them investment owners. Sometimes I call them property owners, but they have subsidized housing. So some are small duplexes, some are major apartment complexes. So as a part of that, some of the things that you can do, the first thing we do is to make sure you look at the local rules. So you're going to look at the ordinance, you're going to look at everything that's local first. And that's because from a federal level, don't necessarily control what we're going to do on a smaller level. And it depends on your city, which is very, very important. Because even around me, the metro area, some cities you want to stay away from because the regulation and the ordinance are so strict that the oversight is just too intense for you to do something what you're describing.
Right.
On the flip
so
side,
check the zoning and make sure that you're not, if you're doing a pad split, and I love the advice, Celena, if you're doing a pad split, like look at the zoning, make sure that you're not in a situation where you can only have a certain number of people in a place without there being sprinklers or something else that needs to be installed.
Well, wasn't there like a weird rule in Tempe? Like if you had more than 6 people living in one house, it was
8.
considered a brothel or something?
Not a brothel, but it's a rooming house. And if you're in a rooming house, then it's then you need to have sprinklers. Yeah. Or was it a brothel?
No,
And
there
it's
was a
just too, and
brothel, and then it's
just
moved
too
to
hot. And then they
sprinklers.
need sprinklers because it's just.
No, there was a brothel
terrible.
law. I don't
You
know if
didn't,
it's
Selena
changed
had
or
no
not.
idea where this was going to go.
Yeah,
and
I'm like,
so,
wait, so we wasn't talking about that. We're talking about how
it's Arizona. This is a red state, and so anytime that there's more than 2 people in a place, they're just going to call it a brothel.
Oh wow!
Like right now, we have Bobby, me, and Dina here. It's a brothel,
And a
and there's a
couple
dog.
puppies.
It's a kinky brothel. Sorry.
Yes, you always want to look at zoning, and sometimes you can get by with having it, even if there are restrictions. Sometimes you can get a variance from that restriction. So, but you want to pay attention to those zoning ordinance. Otherwise, you can set it up and you can do everything else. So, understanding that, and the same thing with me being a magistrate. So, you also have to make sure if there are going to be any special regulation, what you're describing, having these sprinklers, sometimes the room sets are the exits, all those things are very, very important as to restructuring or trying to set up that type of housing.
So you said you're a magistrate?
Yes, I'm a special magistrate as well.
So do people call you your magistrate?
They do. They do. It's really weird. It's really weird. Yes.
I'm sorry. That was such a dumb dad joke. I had to do it. I had to do it.
So, and that's in Lauderdale Lakes, right?
Yes.
So, Selena, I don't know how much you know about what I do, but I'm one of the nation's largest, if not the nation's largest, wholesaler of real estate.
How would I come on your show and not research you? What do you mean?
Wonderful. Wonderful. And I've been very lucky that I've only been sued a handful of times for business. I mean, and when I say a handful of times, I mean three times. I've been sued 3 times, and I've done over 7,000 transactions. So I'm doing really good, right?
Yeah.
I'm likable though, right? So like you don't really want to sue me because you're like, let's pick the D bag we bought a house from. Let's be friends with this guy. But what first would you say are the inherent liabilities that a wholesaler would have exposed themselves to in the process of what we're doing? So I can spell this out a little bit clearer for you. Okay. We buy distressed property, right? We're buying homes that are in severe disrepair.
That aren't market, like they can't go on the regular market. So
they couldn't sell financed, right? Like a regular lender would never loan on these things. They're in such disrepair that they need a tremendous amount of work before they can be quality to be financed, right? So they're not like turnkey market ready homes.
The seller might not want anybody in to see all their stuff that's piled this high.
Right. Whatever that is, right? Whatever those things are, you understand the product now, right? Of what we're looking at. And, there's going to be conversations that we're having with the owner of that home to be like, to be able to negotiate the price that we need it to be at in order for us to be able to do what we need to do in order to make money, right? So on the acquisitions,
they're not a charity. They want to make a little bit of money to be the middle monkey.
Of course, right? So like you're anything you do to make money, right? If we're in a business, if I have an LLC, it should be implied that by me operating an LLC that I'm here to profit, right? LLCs aren't unless it's a nonprofit. Every LLC is for profit, right? And so that's implied. What would you say are the inherent liabilities a wholesaler has from the acquisition side? And then I want to move it over to the disposition side, to them selling it, right? So on the acquisition side, when I'm in a negotiation with a homeowner, if I'm direct with the homeowner, what are some of the liability risks that one should think about when they're in these conversations, engaging in these contracts?
So one of the things when we first started was the fact of disclosures. When you're in it as a wholesaler, you're not fully going to be engaged in every aspect of the condition of the home, right? So that is one of the things, the biggest thing that I say. Another thing is misconception of your role in the transaction. When you are approaching the buyer directly, sometimes they don't understand, or they don't completely understand. The sellers don't completely understand exactly what is it that you're doing. Right. So some go into transactions like this believing that you are friendly, or you are their ally, or you're working in their best interest, or you're working for them. So those two important things to me, those are the two primary things that come from a liability aspect when
So,
I talk
so
about
really making sure that they understand that I'm not a fiduciary,
yeah,
that I'm not here acting in your best interest. I'm here acting in my best
my
interest.
best interest. Because you know what I hear so often? Well, he told me that we were going to sell, or he told me we were going to find someone else, or he told me that this was going to take place as soon as I signed over the documents, not
Or he
understanding.
told me that this was top dollar, and
Yes,
then he assigned the contract for
to someone
20,000.
else. Yes, and he's profiting, and especially when they don't completely understand your role. So they assume things and they don't understand your role. So when they see the money exchange when you're getting out of the contract, they automatically think everyone is against them, or it's fraud going on, or it's not legitimate. They think it's illegal. So from that, sometimes you find that they will pull out of the contract, or they are not as cooperative, but which again goes back to disclosure. You actually disclosing your role and actually being very upfront about what you're there for, your intent in being there, and what you're actually going to do. So that's the one part. And then the other part is going to be liability. Are you getting out of the contract simply when you do an assignment? Like, how detailed is your assignment, and how do you have any identifying language in your assignment when you are getting out of the transaction? Although you're assigning, what exactly are you assigning? And sometimes people get forms off of Google and they use just basic information when they're doing assignment. As again, you're stepping out, but are you really stepping out? Are you stepping out? And sometimes when you sign the contract, the assignability on the contract sometimes have disclaimers, and sometimes they do not. So you are assigning and sometimes keeping liability, or are you assigning and the other person is releasing you as going to hold you harmless from any type of liability, especially with sellers' disclosures.
And
So
that is something that I've noticed in the Florida real estate contract,
yes,
that there is releasing or retaining liability
three
for.
options.
Yep.
Yes.
And
Mhm.
so that's an important distinction we don't have in the
We
Arizona
don't.
contract,
Yeah.
right? Because
Oh,
you can assign a contract, and in the state of Arizona, every contract is inherently assignable unless otherwise stated. That's the statute.
mhm.
And so we don't even need to write and or assignee on our contract, because every contract is inherently assignable unless otherwise stated. So if I don't write contract is not assignable on my contract, then it's assignable.
That's fine. Yeah.
And
That,
that's the statute. That's case law here in Arizona. It's different in Florida, but that's what it is in Arizona. And so of course it's gonna differ
And
state
you
to
don't need to
state.
disclose multiple assignments either on
No,
a daisy
no,
chain. Like, it doesn't need disclosure necessarily.
no. None of that. I mean, disclosure, yes, but not so much in terms of uh, the liability. You still
Right.
got. Here's the funny thing about Arizona is that I don't have to write and or assignee on my contract anymore. But if I am going to wholesale, I do have to disclose that I could potentially wholesale the deal. That I could potentially
oh,
wholesale the contract. That was a new law that was enacted a few years
2
ago.
years ago?
Yeah, a
Yeah. We
couple
were
years ago.
proactive on that one,
Yeah,
we
and
don't
actually.
have
so
that. We don't have that in our language. Or, and again, I want to make a distinction here. There's form residential, and we have some form commercial. But typically, when you're dealing with commercial, most people use tailored contract when they're doing transaction, as opposed to just a typical residential. The residential is the one that have that language with the three options.
And by tailored, Celena, you mean that an attorney drafts the entire contract start to finish with the nuance of the deal in the contract versus a boilerplate version of what we typically use in real estate transactions.
Correct. And sometimes what I do is give clients who always do commercial, they have a form contract, commercial contract, and they can edit the document accordingly, so long as it stick to my basic form. So, which means that some terms, so we have boxes where they can just check out certain terms. So it's not going to be deemed they were practicing law at the time of drafting the contract on behalf. And I also make sure that they disclose that on the bottom of the contract that it was drafted by attorney, but being edited by whoever has been editing the document. So, yeah.
We have so many people that are in the chat and they want to know how to contact you, Celena, and we haven't told them that yet.
No, we haven't. But you guys have to wait till the end of the episode because
But it'll leave
So
us.
keep watching because she's on fire.
she's given us way too much here for you to just like sign off now, right? So we'll definitely
I
give
love your
your
hooks.
information out at the end. But no, this is a really interesting conversation, right? Because it's timely first and foremost with respect to what's going on in the real estate world in general. Second, wholesaling is under fire,
Yes,
right?
yes.
All the
We
time.
are
All the time.
and forgive me, I know that you're in Florida, but do you foresee anything coming in Florida that you think could be potentially derogatory towards the wholesale industry?
Our governor is not interested in wholesaling right now, so you're not on his radar. We have a lot of other things that's coming down the pipe, but nothing that's targeting wholesalers, which is good. And I hope I didn't give anybody any ideas, but that's a good thing for wholesalers. They have so much going on, so many different changes taking place in 2024. Actually, in the last few years, we've had a lot of changes, but nothing directly that would affect. Now, there are things that could affect the ability to short-term rentals. There are things that can change in regards to who can actually foreigners come into the country to buy certain countries.
Yeah, I know
coming to
that
the
right
country.
now that Florida is looking at potentially banning Chinese investors from
We
being
already
able to
did
buy.
it. That was
You did
last
it.
year.
That was
So
last year. Okay.
there is pending lawsuits for it. To be frank, so there are pending lawsuits that are attacking that law to deem it unconstitutional. But he did the same thing that a lot of other states have in place in regards to
Well,
different.
the entire country of Canada enacted that law, and I
Jamil's
why I know is
born
because
in
I
Canada.
was born in I was born in the
Um,
United States, but I was raised in Canada, so I'm a dual citizen, and so I tried to buy a home in Calgary where I grew up last year, and I was denied being able to buy the home because I'm a U.S. resident. Even though I'm a
oh,
Canadian citizen and a U.S. citizen, I'm a U.S. resident. And so the Canadian government deemed me a foreign investor, which I didn't understand. Well, at least the real estate brokerage deemed me a
a
foreign
foreign.
investor.
So you'd be
And so
subject
they
to FERPA.
rejected my offer. They were unwilling to take my offer because they deemed me foreign. Even though I'm a Canadian citizen and I have a Canadian passport, I was foreign, according to them, or the way that they interpreted the law. And so, I thought that was a little bit interesting because, I'm a Canadian. I have a Canadian passport, right? I have a Canadian daughter. I visit my daughter once a month. I wanted to buy a home in the country that I visit my daughter in, so that when I go to visit my kid, that I'm in my own home when I visit my kid. Like, I mean, it just
pretty
felt
basic.
normal to me, right?
Yeah.
But I was restricted from being able to buy, right? And so I see that there's definitely going to be some interpretation challenges that are going to come from that. And there's parts of me that agree, and then there's parts of me that disagree with that, right? That agree that we have a housing crisis in the United States right now, and when you look at what happened in Vancouver, Canada, right, which is where there was a lot of foreign investment in the market there, and you have or New York City for that matter, because I think New York and Vancouver are very similar in that way. There's a lot of foreign investment that came into the state or the province, and all of those units are sitting vacant. They're sitting vacant. The people don't visit them ever. They're literally there to park money. It's just a money park for the investor. And so when you have homeless people and folks that are needing a place to stay, and there's an inventory shortage and a crisis in housing, then how can we justify where somebody is not paying taxes here, somebody is not a part of our current situation, and dealing with the crisis that we have here of homelessness? How can we allow for that entity to come in and take away inventory from the market?
Right.
Right. And so I understand the argument. I understand the heart of the argument. It's that, look, we live here. We need to be able to live here.
Right.
Right. And so on the other side of that, there's going to be, a lot of variables that are missed, right? Um, but in that, right, with the foreign investments or the foreign investor that you've seen, or the way that the laws are being enacted, um, how do you see that playing out right now in terms of its effect on the overall housing market? And is that creating a lack of buyers, or is because right now it's tough for a regular person to go out and buy at an 8% mortgage, where this guy out of Hong Kong wants to buy this house right now and is going to pay over
Cash.
asking for it? Like, what do we do? What are your thoughts?
They want to pay cash. That's what they really want to do, is pay cash. You
Yeah.
said something about parking money here in the States. We have that happen all the time, not just from the countries that are banned from buying in Florida, but we get that all the time. That's been going on for years. The inventory is low, but you have a lot of investors here who hold it, and most of them rent the properties out. But how would that change? I don't think it's changing the landscape right now. Right now, and I'm referring to Florida, the inventory is low. So the inventory is low for absolutely everyone. So after COVID, we had an influx of people to come here to Florida.
Yep.
And that influx led to people buying in cash, like cash buyers coming from New York, New Jersey, Canada. So we had a lot of people come, California, come and just dump
Same thing
money.
happened here.
Yes, but what happened to the market is they make the prices crazy. So we have homes now, the value are set based upon what the sellers were able, because we all know that was a seller's market. No longer, it's a buyer's market right now because the inventory is so low. And you have sellers who wanted to sell. So how did that change? Now we don't have as many cash buyers. So when you have foreigners, typically with closings, what I would have is a lot of people buying with cash. So with some of the developers I work with, they still use those foreigners as investors. And I hope I'm not giving anyone bad ideas or advice, but they still use foreign investors, but the money is exchanged a little different now. So instead of that investment coming directly to the United States, and instead of them transferring money, so what would happen, the investors would set up companies here in the United States, and then that's how they would pay out on the investment. So if it's a sale, and sometimes they hold mortgages, those investments were being taken care of here. Now,
She's so smart.
so
I got it. I picked up what you put down there. That was
okay,
great.
so it's different things.
My
and
goodness.
different-
Own the note, not the house, dummy. Wow. I hope you guys picked up what she put down there.
And I hope I didn't just get anyone like.
Yeah.
No,
you didn't say
you
anything.
said
You
nothing
said
wrong.
No,
You said
no.
nothing wrong. What you said was actual, like, it was gold, right? Like, own the note. If you as the investor, because look, why do I want to own the actual property as a US citizen? I want the depreciation. If I'm a foreign investor, I don't give a
None
rat's
at all.
butthole about
At
the
all,
depreciation.
At all.
I'm looking for capital protection. I'm looking for protection against inflation, and I'm looking for preservation of principal and possibly a return.
Bingo.
Right?
Yeah.
And so what instrument gives me more protection than being the mortgage holder than being the deed holder?
So
Oh
that
my
has been
God!
the
You
approach.
just
That has
totally
been
like
the
turned the
approach.
light
He's
bulb
mind blown.
onto my mind right
It
now.
has been the approach for the last 4 years with so many investors, where it stopped being let me buy. It's more so
Let me lend.
it works so well for people who cannot necessarily afford to buy in the certain markets. I'll hold the mortgage, and they hold it, and they extend it, and they extend it, and they extend it, they extend it. At the same time, they make it a great profit. Great profit.
And it's still your home.
No, it's so good. It's so good. Okay,
That's
so
bad. You caught it, and I was trying to like pivot, like, oh, should I
He's
say?
so
I'm too
smart.
sharp. I'm
He's
too sharp,
so
Celena. Like
smart.
the way that this thing works up here is
Yeah,
that it's
it's
a
always on.
Now you're gonna have
Always
people
on.
rewinding, like, okay, now what did she say?
what did he look how excited he just got? Like what just happened here, and how do we extract that? If you guys didn't understand it, good.
But it's a great means to start investing too. Just that's a great way to start investing for
Mm,
someone who do not have all the capitals to purchase upfront. So that's a great way to start.
wow.
So I feel like we have a lot of investors that get into a transaction and they don't always read all the details. Like,
That's not an investor.
I was thinking,
like,
it's
well,
not
it's
just
all
a-
but I mean, but the title report comes back, there's things on there.
Sure.
I'm just
So we don't
curious.
understand.
Yeah. So like, what do you think is advice you could give on like hidden title trouble?
So what advice can I get? So one, I don't know how many times I could tell you people do not run title. So they will go buy a property without a title search. So the first thing is to do
Oh, bad idea.
Never buy on a quick claim deed.
Bad
Never
never
buy
idea.
buy a quick claim. Never buy a quick claim. Never buy off of. If anyone is trying to rush you to buy a property, don't buy it. And stop. Do your due diligence because that means they're rushing for a reason, right?
Mm.
So there you have, and I don't know if everybody's like this, but Florida, you would have one person selling the property to six different people, and it is six people trying to purchase the property, and obviously something is wrong. But to answer your question, the title portion of it is making sure that you actually do a title search. And once you do the title search, take a look at it. Don't just order the title and run through it. And using some companies online that give you a quick one in like 5 minutes, 10 minutes, that's just not the end of it. You still need to do a code violation search. You still need to do, if it's within association, you still need to do an association search to make sure it is an association. Or you want to make sure that there are nothing wrong in the association. So you would have to get an estoppel. You still need to do due diligence, right? So it's one thing to do a quick search and run a public record search, and you could find some documents and thinking that it's all good. But one of the hidden things that people don't understand when they see a title and they don't truly understand how to read it, ownership. So if there was something wrong where someone died and title passed through there was a probate, sometimes probate don't even take place, and someone that you think is the owner transfer title, it could be down the chain, it could be two or three removed, doesn't necessarily mean you have clean title, right? Yep. So those are issues and things that I think if you are looking at the title and you're just going with the flow and you're thinking that you actually have something, you need to understand it, not just read it. You need to completely understand what it means and every document means. Don't just look at it. Every document on that title search means something and you need to understand it. So education. Don't look at one article, educate yourself. Sit down in someone's seminar, sit down and read things over and over again.
Do you do seminars?
I do seminars. Yes.
Are you helping people understand how to be more active investors in their business and read things and understand what they're doing?
I do. That's one of my biggest, that's the bad thing about my business. Me as a business owner, I spend too much time trying to teach, trying to make sure people actually understand. And I don't get paid for all my time that I'm spending teaching people.
No, I don't get paid for a lot of the time that I spend teaching, right? But you do it because you want that's the service that you provide. Yes, it's how you're helping other human beings.
And I also think that if you understand and you completely understand, you make better choices. You make better decisions. It makes my job easier. I don't like to fight every time my client come in my office. I would rather have a smooth transaction. And if you're educated enough, you're going to navigate better. And if you can navigate the waters better, it's going to make my job easier. So education is key here, especially in investment. Like it's key. Yeah.
And do you have any like real estate horror stories?
I I do. I have
Right.
many. Where do you want to start, and how much time
Ooh,
do
you
we
Well,
have?
pick,
I
you
think
pick.
because we are short on time.
Oh,
Pick the bloodiest, goriest,
Dead
most
body in your
terrible
arsenal.
story you have. Let's just escalate to a 10 here.
I do have one that I will share with you guys. I wrote. Let me see. The one that I would tell you about is, so we had a client who came in. He had a bunch of red flags, right? Obviously, he didn't pay attention. So the property that he was purchasing, the way it was situated, almost like a pie, but at the back of it, it was slanted. So it was like shaped like
A
Like
this,
a
diamond.
cul-de-sac, but a diamond.
but
Yeah.
it was meant like this. You see, like this, and then it went that way.
Okay.
So that's exactly what he was thought he was buying. So that's how we described. That's how the fence was. That's how everything was situated. What we didn't understand and we didn't know at the time until we got the survey done. So once we got the survey back, that's when we realized that not only was that back land not his property, that entire easement was what do you call it? Protected land. So that was
Or like
protected
state
land.
land trust or
Yes.
something.
So
Yeah.
it didn't belong to him, although he had put a fence on it for years. But that was actually protected land. So after everything that was done, including environmental, and if you understand how much it costs to do environmental phases,
Phase 1, 2, and 3 out there. You got to do.
we
Yeah.
we did all of that. So this was even after the survey came back, because
Yep.
the survey itself was relying on they don't necessarily go out to the public records to pull the documents off of and go back chain. They just go back and kind of like draw out where it belongs. Well, that's when we realized that it was protected land. And not only was it protected land, it had been insured by many title companies over the years as belonging to that actual property.
Oh
So
my
I did not
goodness.
understand trying to get someone to take the case over or to represent, because now they're saying there was never disclosure. So, and now you have the survey companies over the years all in this litigation. You have my client who's trapped in a contract, who wants the property because obviously it means a lot, and he was going to
Yep.
use it for agricultural purposes, and that was to develop marijuana.
I was like, he was gonna grow something.
Yeah.
When you
So
said
it wasn't
agriculture,
something
I'm
that
like, what do you
was-
want to grow?
So it wasn't something that was easily to walk away with. And why
Guys,
was it?
marijuana is the new wheat. Let's
So
let's
he
not.
he bought this to grow some things.
If we always like when we say it, like it's like there's this still the stigma attached to it. It's like you wanted to grow marijuana. It's like no, it's like let's just be real here. It's 2024. It's freaking wheat.
Well, you know what?
Wheat.
Here in Florida, it's not as so for
Wheat.
us. It wasn't
Not
as
wheat. It's wheat. It's as common as wheat now.
Potatoes.
It's not.
Potatoes.
No, it's not.
as
Am I
common.
being
No, it's
too
Yeah, that's way max. It's not
okay?
as common.
Maybe
Now,
it's
I
just
don't think it's legal
maybe
in
it's more.
Florida.
It's not legal in Florida. No.
it is medical approved
Oh,
here.
you guys are living in the dark ages over there. Are you allowed to smoke weed as an attorney?
Why not? You too. Why wouldn't you be able to? Like,
Who's
who's going
gonna
to?
arrest her? It's her
I'm
company.
just asking. I just
But no. That's a good question. I've never been at a firm that did a drug test, and I don't know if that's a stigma of what attorneys, but I've never been at any firm that has done a drug test.
so Celena, sativa or indica?
Both depends on
Oh
the mood.
hell
Depends
yeah!
on the mood.
There she is. There she is.
And I don't drug test my employees either. So
Amazing.
I get background checked like every 2 years.
You do?
Mhm.
well, you probably should in your line of business, though.
Yeah.
Okay, so this was actually one of the most fun
So
conversations that
fun.
I've had.
Well, you have to have me back.
wasn't
Yes, I think our audience wants you
I
back
truly
too.
wasn't expecting. Not that I had low expectations. I just didn't know. I didn't know. I didn't know what to expect. That's
It's our
what it
first
was.
time meeting you.
I had
That's
no
why.
expectations, not low expectations. I had no expectations. Our first time meeting, but I am a fan.
Let's have her back.
Thank
I'm a
you.
big fan of you,
Yeah.
Celena. I think not only are you incredibly knowledgeable, very, very, very good at what you do, but you are very awesome to talk to and work with. And so I think there's going to be a ton of people that are going to want to work with you that are our audience, not only the live viewers, but the ones that will watch this after the fact. So I want to ask 2 quick questions. Do you deal with wholesale transactions?
I do.
Do you deal with creative finance transactions?
Very
So
much.
you consider yourself a investor friendly closing attorney
I am.
Only in Florida,
in
correct?
Florida?
In Florida, yes. I
And
am
how can
very,
people
very
reach you?
creative with everything that I do. And I'm going to say this in a very ethical way. There's a black and there's a white and then there's a gray. And when you're dealing with investors, you have to kind of navigate.
You live in the
sometimes
gray.
Yes, sometimes you have to navigate in the gray. And that's how you get things done. You get things done by not thinking that everything needs to be perfect. It's not going to be perfect. And I never approach anything thinking it's going to be perfect or easy. Hence the reason I told you guys today. It's been cuckoo bananas, but I'm still sane.
We're the highlight of your day. I have a feeling.
Yes, I'm saying because I don't go in with an expectation that it should be perfect, because life is not perfect and things don't work out the way you think they should. So anytime you're approaching situations, you always think worst case scenarios. And that's how I approach when I'm doing the drafting. What is the worst case scenario that can happen here? And that's how you draft it, with the understanding that things may go wrong. It may not, but there's a high probability things are not going to go as planned. So yeah.
I just want to say that you've been probably one of the most loved guests that we've had on this show in the chat.
Really?
Though it's been
You're getting so much
been
love,
off
Celena.
the charts. There's been so much love. So many people are like, "Oh my goodness, she's amazing." So how do people work with you? How do people do business with Celena Nash?
So my firm is nashreallaw.com. So the real don't stand for I am real. It's real
property.
Stands for real estate. Yes, real estate. So people was like, oh, so what were you thinking? Real estate. That's what I was thinking. But it's nashreallaw.com. That's 2 L's.com. You can contact us on our website. We can also reach me at info@nashreallaw.com. And if you email me there, someone will always respond to you, or it may be me responding. And that's how you can reach me. I'm on Facebook. I'm on Twitter. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on all these good things.
And what is your Instagram or your socials for people to
Nash Real Law.
Nash Real Law.
Yes.
And Celena, do you consult with people outside of Florida?
No, only if they're trying to set up things in regards to, I can consult on general things. But if you want specific advice in regards to how to real estate, I can tell you about the structures. I can tell you how to navigate certain things. But the laws, I can't tell you about various states because I don't practice in any other state except Florida.
Celena, it has been a pleasure to have you here.
You guys have to have me back.
We will have you back.
We will. Yvette will email you.
Yep.
And we'll coordinate. Okay. But you've been a delight. And I hope that we just lightened up your day a little and you had some fun with us.
Did. Thank you. I appreciate it, you guys.
We got to leave her with one last goofy question.
Yeah, let's ask it.
One thing. I didn't meet the dog.
Henry.
Henry, come here.
Yes.
Henry, come here, buddy. Come here. Come here, Henry.
Come on, buddy.
Aww.
Oh, come on, get up. He's sleepy. We just got him up out of his sleep. He's like, wait, what? I was just hanging out with you guys a minute ago, and you said to me to go down and I to come up.
So he's just gonna he's CPs. Okay, so what was the last thing that you Googled?
What's the last thing that you Googled?
The last thing I Googled, how to roll the biggest blunt. No, I'm just kidding.
There's Henry.
This is Henry.
Hi, Henry.
What's the man behind the cam?
Oh, hi.
Hi.
Aww.
Yes, he's so sweet.
We're one big happy family.
Yes, we are.
That's my dude. That's my dog.
We love him.
No, the last thing I did Google was nearest FedEx.
Nearest what?
FedEx.
Oh,
Wonderful. That was a 100% attorney answer. Celena,
No, I had.
of course, because you wanted to serve people with FedEx.
No, I had. I had closings that ran over later, so I had to.
Or you were overnighting documents.
Yes.
Of course. I mean, unfortunately,
legit.
and yeah,
It's legit.
it's legit. It's
Then we
just
gotta
like
ask
we
her
can't
another
ask
one then.
attorneys answer questions like that.
okay, the ordinary.
I'm sorry, I'm a little boring. Just
What's something that's super ordinary you've never done before?
I've never had a beer.
Wow.
Whoa. So Pace said he never had coffee. Now we've never had a beer.
You've never had a beer before.
Okay.
Is that just by choice? You don't drink alcohol, or
No, I drink alcohol. Tequila is my choice.
drink
of
of choice?
choice.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's a stimulant, not a depressant. I respect that very much.
I just
brings
never
out your
had a beer. I don't
natural
like the
happy.
smell. I don't like the smell of beer.
All right. Well, that was a great answer.
Oh.
Celena, been a pleasure to
Yes.
get to know you. We'll have you back again. Guys, give her some love. Go follow her on Instagram. Send her an email and do business with this lady because she's dope.
Oh,
We love you, Celena.
Yes.
All right. See you guys.